Happy Halloween, Michael. Hey everyone, this is the Movie Maniac. Thank you for watching. Hello to new returning subscribers. Today, as the title suggests, we're going to do Halloween 2018 Revisited. So I've seen this movie twice, once in the theater opening weekend, then a year or two later on Blu-ray. And what's strange is over the past year or so, I've had a lot of people revisiting this film telling me it's going further and further down on their list, and I just couldn't imagine why that would be the case, so I wanted to investigate. So I sat down, plopped on this movie, turned on all of my cool lighting that I have, all my Halloween stuff going. I'm in the mood, baby. I'm sitting down. Haters be damned. I'm watching Halloween 2018. So, the question becomes, did that awesome time I had, the first couple of viewings I gave it, hold up on the third viewing? Let's get into the good and the bad. So I think that the first 10 minutes of this film are actual perfection. I would give it a 10 out of 10, from the first frame up until the end of the opening credits. I can't find a single thing wrong with it. As a matter of fact, I think it's so incredible that when it gets to the credits, it does that hard cut and Halloween theme comes on, my eyes get watery. This movie is pure perfection. How could it go wrong? It's after this we begin to learn that the film cannot keep up with the quality that was established in that opening sequence. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is where things that didn't bother me before really started to stand out. These complaints about Laurie Strode being Sarah Connor in this movie, they've been around since the film's release opening weekend. I've heard this so many times, it's incalculable. So here's where it actually makes sense. If you were to include Halloween 2 and Halloween H2O in this timeline, somehow, that would make a lot more sense to me that she would have gotten to this point. But as where it stands, this is just a sequel to the first film. It's like, this is a little overboard. In addition to this, everything is so melodramatic. And then when you introduce some rough dialogue, we're on shaky ground now. Dialogue is another point that people that didn't like this movie had, and that's something else that I kind of let slide. But yeah, this time around, it really does stand out like a sore thumb. All right, let's get to some of the positives here. A, just having Jamie Lee Curtis back as Laurie Strode is freaking incredible. And I actually do think that her performance is great in this. It's not her that I have an issue with. It's not her performance that's a problem for me. It's just the over-the-top nature in which they played out where her character would be at now after the first movie, assuming nothing else has happened between now and then. That's where kind of the issue is. But even then, if you're willing to look past it a little bit, like, she is awesome in this. Judy Greer, I really like. There is one scene, though, where her performance sucks. And I really hate to call out actors like that. But it's just, I can't even remember what it was. It's the scene where she's, like, staring past the camera and she goes, "This is what I've had to deal with every such and such and such." I can't remember the dialogue. It's so bad. Myers is amazing in this. His mask is incredible. He's great in this. I love that aged mask that I think inspired Scream 6 to dig up the old mask and bring back. I mean, this really did establish a lot of future requels that came after it. So, I mean, they did something right here, and he is great. I mean, this feels like Myers in full form. And I'll tell you, the moment he shows up in Haddonfield and bumps into the trick-or-treaters, and it's that one shot that follows him to the side of the house, to the shed where he gets the hammer and then into the house, that is close to as good as you can get with this kind of film. And this is where it just turns into your straightforward slasher flick. This is where so many questions emerge as a big fan is, okay, so now that we're moving into standard slasher territory, was it necessary to take 45 minutes to set this thing up? Because we've had so many Halloween movies before this, so many experiences in film with Michael Myers that it's like, this isn't Jaws for the first time. This isn't the initial Halloween. Do we need to take 45 minutes to get to all of the mayhem? And I know that there's stuff along the way, like the thing in the bathroom stall and, some of the other stuff where the bus gets into the accident and I guess it runs off the road. I get that, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Like sort of that moment where you can say the movie begins. Did we need to take that long setting everything up? And on repeat viewings, I've come to the conclusion that we really didn't need to. This is not that kind of film. Because aside from the first 10 minutes, you're not gonna reach that level of quality where you have the license to do that. I think that if this were on the level of a John Carpenter film, or if this were on the level of like classic Spielberg filmmaking, like by all means go for it, but we're not even close to touching that. Now I will mention something that's on point from beginning to end without any flaws along the way, and that is John Carpenter, and I believe it's Cody Carpenter's score. Wow. I mean, honestly, I wonder what would happen if they didn't get involved and you had somebody else doing the music. I wonder if the movie, you'd bump it down another point or so. At least his music helps us feel like it's grounding us down into that reality from the previous movie. Okay, the Doctor twist. So I've never had an issue with this on my first two viewings, and I don't think I have so much of an issue with it on this one either. It's more so that setting up a big idea like that requires a little bit more, like we need to sink our teeth into this one. This isn't something that just kind of like, let's pop it up, go through it real quick, and then we're done. Which is kind of the approach this film takes, and I just didn't understand that, because that is kind of a big new way to have things go down, and it can be really exciting, and maybe we should have had more time with that Doctor prior to that twist, because, you know, Loomis is in the entire film, and I'm not saying we never see this guy or anything, but maybe he should have been more of a main character, and then when that moment happens, it just has a little bit more weight to it, and then you can have more of setups taking place along the way by having him in the movie more frequently and having him be a main character. I mean, really a main character, which this movie didn't necessarily do. And so there's pros and cons to it. I like the idea. I think it's kind of cool, but it just seems like, man, we really missed something here. And that's another thing I've experienced throughout the runtime, especially on my third viewing, is that there are so many cool setups that just seem to kind of fizz out. Like, we don't really explore a lot of ideas that are introduced and concepts and new things that have happened in this film. And I don't think it needs a longer runtime to explore it. It just needs a better script and better execution. And now we've arrived at the final showdown between Laurie and Michael. And I'll say, this one is so good that you can see from a mile away this would be hard to replicate in further sequels, which it was. That fight in Final Showdown in Halloween Ends, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't what this movie had to offer. You know, when Halloween 2018 came out, we didn't know there were going to be sequels. For all we knew, this was Jamie Lee Curtis coming back one final time. You had Nick Castle, John Carpenter, other people jumping on board. They've got this requel idea, and that could be it. I mean, if he comes back, maybe there's just no Laurie Strode. She's out of the mix, and we're now following the daughter and the granddaughter and all that. I mean, that was certainly a possibility. We didn't know where it was going, so in a way, this really does feel like the final showdown between Laurie and Michael. And even when you have the kind of cheesy stuff that just doesn't make any sense, like when Michael steps on the head and it was like watching him step on a watermelon, it's goofy, but you know what? I like it. We can accept it. It's a slasher. Remember what you're dealing with here. And I guess, again, that's something I would point out to David Gordon Green and the gang, and what stands out in the first half of the movie is that you are working with a slasher. You know, going into this whole, like, melodramatic character exploration, just be careful how far down there you go, because unless you are just like a veteran writer that is able to knock out incredible dialogue and top-tier scripts, you might want to avoid how much of that you get into. And I see that now on my third viewing where, you know, again, you're not going to be able to recreate what Carpenter did. Guys, with all that being said, I'm going to tell you that, again, I had it at 7.5 on my first two viewings. I'm going to take it down to a 7, and as a matter of fact, this is a soft 7. I mean, we're teetering on 6.5 now, so it's not holding up the way I thought that it would. In my mind, this movie would be like going up to an 8 or an 8.5 or a 9, and I think I'm shocked actually to discover that it's not doing that. So with Halloween 2018, it's a stripped down, back to basics slasher, which I'm all for. That's what I'm here for. So it seems like maybe they were trying to bite off more than they can chew for that 30-minute stretch. Once we got past that opening credits and the first 10 minutes of the movie, which were perfection, and then after that scene specifically, we really started to kind of fall into average, mediocre territory, which isn't good. And then, some little peaks in here along the way, but not until we really come around to him getting let loose and just goes on his slashing spree, that this film starts to really come back around. And I think that's a shame. I mean, honestly, if you've seen this movie enough times, maybe just start it from the point where Michael gets his mask, and you're good. I mean, I really do think that, watch the opening 10 minutes, of course. I know some of you will maybe think like, really? You're going down from a 7.5 to a 7, it's not that big of a deal. Guys, it's a soft 7. Again, it might be on the verge of a 6.5. Alright guys, what is your experience with revisiting Halloween 2018? Has it gone up? Has it stayed the same? Has it gone down? I'm really curious to hear. Most of you already know the drill, but for those who don't, make sure to smash that notification bell. Like, comment, and subscribe so you can stay inside the mind of a movie maniac.